Welcome, everybody, to this week's pre-week analysis session for the week of April 28th to May 2nd. Let's dive straight into it, and let's start by looking at the financial news for this week. So if we hop on Forex Factory, tomorrow we don't see much on anything, really. Not too much news tomorrow. On Tuesday, there isn't much news either, but I would take a 5 if not 10 minute interval between jolts because jolts can be quite high impact. So depending on the move that jolts gives us, we want to be very careful because it is a type of high impact news. So be careful on Tuesday. Likely give a 5-10 minute interval before and after jolts. Wednesday we have GDP and employment costs, and PCE. So I'll just give 5 minute interval at 9 a.m. I think that would be sufficient for Wednesday. On Thursday, we do have unemployment claims. Need to watch out for that. And then PMI, same thing, 5 minute interval at 9 a.m. That should be sufficient, and 5 minute interval at 8:45 as well. So on Thursday, I would just think about entering any trades after 9:05 a.m. And back on Wednesday, same thing. I would think about entering a trade after 9:05. But if we go to Friday, pardon me for that. If we go to Friday, on Friday there is NFP, so Friday, take the day off, just enjoy the day on Friday. Friday, I would not recommend trading, especially if NFP results in a pretty large move. I would definitely be careful on NFP day. On financial juice, I'm expecting it to be the same things. Yeah, it looks to be the same thing so far. Yeah, pretty much the same. But while you're trading, I would recommend looking at financial juice because they're faster. But it's essentially the same as what we saw in Forex Factory as well. So now let's go on to the charts, mark out some key levels, and set up some predictable outcomes for what we have been seeing. So on the daily time frame, it does look like we are shifting the market once again towards the uptrend, and we have to see how this holds. But let's see on the 4 hour. Let's mark out a quick volume profile. Let's go far away. So it does look like these highs are a very, very important level, and I'll mark this out as a high volume node for sure. So let's go ahead and mark that right away. High volume node there. Let's mark out some other high volume nodes as well. High volume node there. And we also have high volume node down there, but that's more spread apart, so we're going to be patient and see this high volume node does line up with that structure down in the lows, so those levels shall be sufficient enough for that. On 3 hour, we can mark out all our levels. I'm definitely thinking either tomorrow or Tuesday we do see some continued upwards action going on. See something like that where we take out liquidity, but we have to see a reaction at, yeah, I'm realistically thinking that we're gonna head to those highs. The move for the week may end up taking us towards these highs right here is what I'm noticing already, and what I would be more inclined to take in terms of any trades or such. Do you see more liquidity up at these lows or key level? Yeah. 1 hour. You see a 1 hour down there. Let's mark out a lower duration market profile. Yeah, on the lower time frames, we do have volume there, but look up right here. This area is a high volume node in itself. So let me just move it a bit farther back until this area and notice it. So this is definitely a key area that I will be looking out for as well. Mark this out as a high volume node as well. So you have 3 high volume nodes, 2 above, 1 below. So simple subtraction, I would be preferred to target these upper high volume nodes and liquidity because the structure for the time being is aiming that momentum is going towards the upside. But in the case that we do show change in momentum to the downside, I think we take these 2 liquidity levels for sure. But I am more inclined to see more upwards potential. On 30-minute time frame, not much to work with at all there. Yeah, from what I'm seeing, it does look like we are going to continue up. And why is that? Because we have 2 high volume nodes above, lots of liquidity above. Our market structure and momentum is leaning more towards the upside. But in recent time frame, we did transact the most volume down here. What we do have to keep in mind is that if momentum switches and we see a trend break or break of structure, whatever you want to call it, then potentially we may head down to these lower liquidity before we see a move higher. But that's what these are my predictable outcomes. Something like that. We either go up from here or down to these liquid levels before we make our way back up. But that's only what I'm seeing on NQ. Let's take a look at ES as well. Let's take out what we got on there already. So on the daily time frame, it does look quite similar. We just broke above these highs right here. Let's go out to the 4 hour, mark out a volume profile to those highs, and it does look like our high volume node is down below. So we will keep that in mind. Remember, we're never married to one bias. Also keep in mind that we do have high volume node there, which lines up with this liquidity level. So we can mark out this as a main liquidity level plus high volume node. But I want to extend this a bit farther to see up till here, and would you look at that right now? So what I'm seeing is that this level right here is very, very important in the market. If we move even further, I can almost bet that POC is going to be higher. Yep, it is. And the difference between it is quite significant. You have so much volume transacted up at those highs. But if you look in the closer time frame, our POC is down here, although we do have a high volume area up there. But let's take a look and just let me see where the highest point is, so we can mark out area between it there. We can mark out a high volume node there as well, just to be aware of where the volume is being transacted. Now let's mark out our other levels on the market. Market structure is bullish, so I would prefer upside, but we can trade towards the downside as well. To our yeah, those two line up pretty nicely right here. We do have stacked liquidity up at those levels. So it's going to be high liquidity. We do have a zone there as well to our supply zone. And if you just look at the market, it does same thing as NQ. Momentum does seem to be aiming for the upside, but before we do go to the upside, we might need to see some downside first before a move up, or some more downside before a move up, or we can just continue up. But for this, I do seek that we're likely going to take some sort of retracement before we continue higher. Whether that take our liquidity below or not, we get closer to the high volume node, and in the relative area of the high volume node, it will be significant. So let's take a look at the VIX. On the 4 hour, it does look like we can continue down to a pretty strong area, but what I want you to keep in mind is that these levels are very important where we are trading at right now. Yeah, there's really, on VIX, it really looks like it could go either way, right? Because right at this level, we could reject there, or we could continue going towards the downside. So what this tells us is that if market does not reverse from this level, it may just continue going upwards. But if we do reverse from this level, we have to see how we react to other levels like that right there, like this level right there, this level, and this level. These are the things that I'm looking for on the VIX. But it does look like we tapped in there once, pushed above, and now we're retesting that area. If you can break down the strength, I do think that we can continue going up on NQ and ES. So I would prefer going towards the upside and seeing a move higher for the week, but anything could happen, as you know. So overall plan, what I'm thinking is that we may head lower. And these are my plans, right? I'm gonna have 3 preferable outcomes for the week, right? And honestly, anything could happen. We have to see reactions at each one of these levels. So our first preferable outcome is that we just continue to go up from here, head towards our high volume node, where we have to see if we go down or up from there. So our optimal target is that we continue going up and at least touch this high volume node before we have to see the reaction and how the market is performing at that level. Our second preferable outcome is that if we come down, sweep this liquidity, and start moving up again. And our third is if we make a larger move for the week, take out these 2 lower liquidity levels before we have to see a reaction there. All 3, we are preferring the upside simply because of market structure and momentum. If you do look at the daily chart, last week has been kind of fully towards the upside. So what I'm going to say is that we may have to revert towards the mean before we continue going up. So let me take back what I said before and have 2 main preferable outcomes and 1 medium preferable outcome, right? Our first one, we continue going higher. Our next preferable outcome is that we go down to the high volume node right away, tomorrow market open or within the week, and we see how we react at those levels. This could mean that we may even want to head towards V2 levels of the entire range, which means that we may want to enter an area down. We may want to enter area down near these liquidity levels, but we really could do anything. What I would most prefer seeing the market is either us go up from here to seek a reaction from this level, or we move down and seek a reaction from this level. But that's how I see the week playing down. We either revert back to the mean in terms of high volume node, make a retracement towards the downside before we continue up again, in my opinion, or we can just continue going up again until we have filled this major downside that we have been seeing for the last for the last month or so. So which could mean that we head to these highs right here in the week coming forth. And with the NFP, you may expect a large move. So we can expect something of that nature to occur. But we do have to wait and see how we react on Monday for how the rest of the week sets itself up. So depending on how we open on Monday, we can see if we want to take a preferable outcome towards the downside, aiming for these high volume nodes and levels, or towards the upside for these high volume nodes and levels. That's essentially where I'm going to leave it off for today. I don't really have much else to say. Those are my preferable outcomes, and we've discussed why that is as well, and the news for this week, and what we may foresee happening. Thank you so much for attending this pre-week analysis session. If you have any questions or want to learn more, please join the Discord. It's completely free and you get updates, resources, and much more. I highly recommend you to join. You may also leave a comment down below. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions there as well. And I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow for a market analysis or trade recap session here tomorrow. I'll see you guys then. Goodbye.